All right, welcome back to the morning show here on the Rise News. I'm Rufai Hosseini.
And I'm Adesoa Omoruan.
Recently, Microsoft Corporation announced plans to invest $100 million to open an African Technology Development Center with sites in Kenya and Nigeria over the next 5 years. And furthermore, with major plans to hire more than 100 local engineers to work in a new African facility in these countries to customize applications for the African market and to develop new ones for the continent and beyond. So joining us now to discuss this and more is Regional Director Amrote Abdella. Welcoming you to the morning show, Amrote. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Harambe, like they say in Kenya.
Yes, absolutely. Karibuni. Thank you very much.
So, Amrote, you're in Nigeria for the big lunch.
Yes.
Talk us through the big lunch, what Microsoft is launching, what Microsoft is doing with for Africa, and the possibilities as regards employment and opportunities for young Nigerian developers and those that want digital skills.
Excellent. So first, we are honored to sort of be at a stage today where we can actually announce the launch of our first African Development Center here in Nigeria and in Kenya that we've done on Tuesday. And it's an opportunity for us to really hire and give exposure to young engineers coming out of university or those that are already working to come and work side by side with some of our engineers at Corp who are working on some of our latest technologies. So it's really an opportunity and an honor for us to really see sort of us taking, as a continent, an opportunity to be part of the transformation as well. As you know, Microsoft launched the For Africa initiative about 6 years ago, based on the premise that we really believe in one innovation, which is giving an opportunity for local developers to create unique solutions based in Africa, giving them the skills, the opportunity to really have the careers and the growth in the skills development space as well. And last but not least was really the premise around affordable access, which is how do we actually connect young Africans to the world marketplace as well.
Well, but what do you think is so special about the Nigeria tech space that has attracted the big names such as Microsoft Core? And what exactly is this $100 million? Dollars?
That is correct.
What are you spending this on? And let me also ask you, what is in it for Microsoft? Because there's no free lunch anywhere.
Well, look, it's not so much about the free lunch as much as it is so Microsoft, just to give context, has existing 6 other development centers across the world. So the 7th one is coming now here to Africa. And so this is on the back also of the investment and the launch we made of our data center in South Africa, in 2 sites, both in Cape Town and Joburg in March. So that happened about 8 weeks ago, actually. So 8 weeks later, we're seeing the launch of the African Development Center in Kenya and Nigeria, with the premise of really looking at how do we build skills, but how do we also allow Africa to be part of the tech space, especially as we look at it from our own products as well. So what's in it for Microsoft? Mm-hmm. Look, we believe that Nigeria and Kenya and Africa really more broadly has a huge role to play in the tech space, right? So we talk about sort of the rise, the Silicon Savannah and a few other things. But over the years, and especially given how long we've been on the continent, 25 plus years, we really believe that it's Africa's time to be part of the co-development, right? Co-development, not just the consumption, but the co-development of technology in the way we see it. So the team that will be based here in Lagos will be working on our mixed reality technology. So it's really an opportunity for young, cutting-edge sort of engineers who are excited and want to get into the tech space to come and work side by side with some of our colleagues.
All right, so let me just jump in on this, Amrote. There are many dynamics to this. Number one, I just want you to talk us through what Microsoft is doing for digital inclusion. Apart from this initiative, other things other than the For Africa initiative, and also the fact that Africa is at a very dynamic stage. In the next 20 years, according to stats by population census all over the world, we're going to have a workforce of over 200 million young people. And that's impending, that's there, and it's going to happen. Africa is going to be the biggest work factory of the world, and digital skills and digital inclusion will be the future. And like Satya Nadella will talk about a lot, inclusion, harmony, and the coming together. Little one I talked about, Harambe, when you got in. What is Microsoft doing to bring about inclusion and also understanding the impending problems that's going to happen with a very big workforce out of Africa and how to scale the gap providing technology and innovation to the world?
Absolutely. Look, so just last week, we were in Ghana for the launch of the IFC report around digital skills. And the estimates and the number they have looks at exactly to those numbers, that by 2030, there will be 230 million digital skills and jobs that will have to be created, right? And so as we look at that, and we are honored to be part of it because they had looked at about 160 companies, globally and locally, look at different practices that they've had, and they selected 8 to really say, here are the 8 companies and the different formats that they've taken to really contribute to the skills development and the career opportunities as well. So we as Microsoft for Africa were honored to be part of it. But I want to tell you what's key, right? So one is the creating the opportunity for the right training and the curriculum contribution and really working side by side with the universities. But once they graduate, right, so how do we make sure that we give them the exposure, the understanding of what does it take to actually work in the tech space? So we as for Africa, over the last 6 years, have invested in upskilling about 1.7 million Africans. We've brought about 600,000 SMEs online. But what's key is the bridge to the workforce that we have done. And that's one, our internship program. Our internship program to date has a retention rate of about 82%, right? So we discover, train, identify, and then place, not just within Microsoft, but also within our partner ecosystem. So for the 12,000 plus partners that we have, we work sort of as a recruiting engine to be able to say, if you're looking for someone who has the right skills around technical skills, marketing or business, we will identify them, we'll place them for you. Now what that does is it allows for small, medium enterprise, right, to grow their business because they may not have the resources to invest in such placement programs, but then for the young graduate, it also gives them an opportunity to grow as well.
Well, we've seen increasingly that investment in tech and IT in Africa comes from the West. You've been on the continent for over 2 decades now, you said, but I would like to do a comparison of Nigeria and other countries on the continent. How would you describe the tech space in Nigeria? Would you say it's still at its infancy stage?
No, there's no way you can say that it's at its infancy stage because Nigeria today, and
that's because of the infrastructure. There's a lot said about tech infrastructure not being available, not being in existence, and a lot of companies have to struggle with that, and that's the gap Microsoft is trying to close, where companies can have this infrastructure already and they don't have to think about it.
Yeah, but if we don't have to think about some of these infrastructure challenges, then probably honestly we're not in Africa. Okay, let's be real. Across Africa, right, bar some of the more developed infrastructure countries that you have, across the continent, whether you're looking at East or West, there are some level of infrastructure challenges, whether it's affordable access, whether it's the skills, whether it's electricity. So it's a question of how do we today, as we look at the challenges that we have in healthcare, in financial services, what are the solutions that we're locally developing to be able to meet some of this demand? So in Nigeria here, you have some great solutions. So whether it's Flutterwave, whether it's SIDMAC, whether it's InterSwitch, that have really been able to integrate their solutions into mainstream industries. And so as we look at that, we have to think of how do we then cultivate more of that, whether it's in ag, whether it's in manufacturing, to be able to really change that as well.
All right, so let me take you in this and talk about something for the developers. Let me get the engineers a little bit excited in the house here. What will this development center be working on? Is it fintech? Is it AI? Because I know Microsoft is big of artificial intelligence. Is it cloud computing? Because I know Azure and the work Microsoft is doing with Azure software. Is it big data? Is it imaging, Oculus, and some other technology like that? What will be, or is it a potpourri of ideas they'll be working on, engineers will be working on from this center out of Lagos?
Look, out of Lagos, the priority projects that we have identified is really around mixed reality, right, which is quite exciting. So that's the first foray that they will have.
What's mixed reality? Is it like virtual reality or augmented reality?
It's augmented reality, it's virtual reality. So it's really an opportunity for data scientists to really come in and explore what they can do around AI, around ML, around IoT, and be able to really get their hands on some of the products that we're also working on as well. Now, as we look at sort of the rest of the areas across Africa, I think definitely there are areas that we want to utilize our engineering centers around, focused around agtech, around energy. Definitely stand out as 2 areas, plus of course health, for them to be able to really lend their know-how, their knowledge, and work really side by side with our partners to be able to make a difference across these areas.
What is the long-term goal here? How sustainable is this? Because when it comes to African tech, there's no get-rich-quick investment here. No,
look, I think that there's no get-rich-quick, but what we do have, right, is We have committed as a launch of $100 million across the 2 sites that we have, and hiring 100 by end of December 2019.
Wow.
And our hope and our scope as we look at this is in 5 years to have 500 engineers based here on the continent. So we're contributing not just in terms of the dollar value to the centers, but it's really an opportunity for our engineers to stay on the continent and to work. And not have to leave the continent to be able to have great careers as well. So it's really that testament that we're able to say we are in it for the long run. We've been here. We'll continue to be here. We just now need to get more of the talent to come and work side by side with us to be able to make a difference.
So recently, Microsoft started resurging as a company. A lot of good things that are happening to Microsoft, not like the Microsoft Peter Thiel used to call the Rust Belt of technology any longer, because the valuation hit about $1 trillion, and Microsoft is on the bounce with what they do with Azure and cloud computing and things like that. Will this also, flicker through to African continent? Apart from this investment is good, but we know there are other areas. We know they're the big ones, We know a Microsoft will want to have like a campus, apart from just the center, a campus where, technology will disseminate it, and the partnership with Nigerian universities. Because when you look at the evolution of technology at Silicon Valley, it has always been a symbiotic relation because of the universities around. And that's why Silicon Valley grew out of universities area, the likes of Stanford, California, and places like that. So are we looking at that in the long run? Or is just this 100 million, or there's more coming in the kitty?
No, look, I think first of all, you're right. So the Silicon Valley didn't happen on its own, right? So it wasn't sort of a cluster that just emerged on its own. There's definitely the support of great institutions behind it and around it to be able to cultivate that culture. Now, in Africa, as we're looking at it, you're exactly right. We're looking at the universities to, again, sort of be able to say, how do we nurture and bring them along around our R&D, right? To be able to work with us around talent identification, but more importantly, understand also what are some of the best practices that we can bring into some of these universities for them to be able to work with us. So there's definitely that commitment. Now, it does help to have a very good turnaround around the company for us to be able to a stage where we're able to expand. But also, I think it goes back to the mission statement, which is with Satya, he came in and really changed the company, but allowed us to also think of how do we empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And to be honest, there's no other place where we can really see that culture come to life and that mission come to life than in Africa.
I think it's time to hit refresh.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Amrote Abdella, the Regional Director, Microsoft, for coming on the show this morning. Great to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Rufai, we'll have to go.
Yes.
And that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Many thanks to you for watching. I'm Adesua Omoran from our entire team here in Lagos. Enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. You are Rufai Hussaini.
Yes, I'm Rufai Hussaini.
Goodbye.
And have a great weekend, Adesua.
You too.